Have you ever sat in a quiet room and thought, why does everyone keep saying I need more friends at my age? Maybe someone even hinted that spending time alone too often isn't healthy. But deep down, you don't feel lonely, you feel at peace. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. And believe it or not, there's absolutely nothing wrong with enjoying your own company more than a crowded lunch date or a group outing you didn't really want to go to in the first place. We've grown up being told that having lots of friends is the key to a happy life. And while that might be true at certain stages, like when you're raising kids, building a career, or navigating your 40s and 50s, it doesn't always hold the same weight after 70. In fact, there's a kind of quiet joy, a deep satisfaction, that can come from stepping into this stage of life without feeling the need to chase companionship just to fill a gap. In this video, we're going to talk about why you truly don't need friends after 70, and how embracing your own space, your own rhythm, and your own joy can actually lead to a happier, more peaceful life. We're going to walk through 6 meaningful reasons that might just change the way you look at aging, independence, and what it means to feel fulfilled. So, let's dive into the first reason, and I want you to really let this one sink in, because it's more powerful than it sounds. You finally have the freedom to choose peace over performance. Think about it. How much of your earlier life was spent managing relationships, worrying about what someone thought of you, or juggling plans you didn't really want to make? Friendships, while beautiful, also take energy. And sometimes, they come with drama, obligation, or that little tug in your gut when someone crosses a boundary you didn't want to enforce. But now, you don't owe anyone an explanation. If you want to spend your morning watching the birds with a hot cup of tea, or take an afternoon nap without worrying who's going to call or stop by, you can. Peace isn't boring, it's sacred. And for many people over 70, that peace is worth more than any party invite or social calendar. Now, that doesn't mean you're cutting everyone off. It just means you're prioritizing quality over quantity, and more importantly, your own emotional well-being over what society says you should be doing. There's a quiet power in no longer needing to explain why you'd rather stay in than go out. That power is freedom. And freedom is joy. Another reason why friends become less of a need and more of an option is because you're finally in tune with your true self. When you were younger, friendships often formed around convenience. School, work, neighbors, parents of your kids' friends. But now, your time is your own. And with that comes a beautiful clarity. You know what makes you laugh, what calms your nerves, and what lifts your spirit. You don't need a room full of people to validate your experiences or your emotions. You've been through decades of highs and lows. You've survived heartbreaks, celebrated milestones, grieved losses, and found new meaning again and again. That kind of life experience gives you a deep well of wisdom to draw from, without always needing outside input. Some might say, but what about companionship? And yes, connection is important. But connection doesn't always mean friendship in the traditional sense. A smile at the grocery store, a quick chat with a neighbor while watering the garden, a kind word to someone in passing, that's still human connection. It counts. And it often feels more natural and effortless than trying to maintain deep social circles that may no longer align with who you are today. And here's something you may not hear very often: it's okay if some of your old friendships have faded. People change. You've changed. And some relationships simply run their course. Hanging on to a friendship out of guilt or habit doesn't serve anyone, not you, and not them. When you let go of that pressure, you open up space. Space to explore what truly lights you up. Space to rest. To try something new. To just be. You might find that spending time alone lets your creativity flow in ways you never imagined. Maybe it's writing, painting, gardening, birdwatching, walking with no destination, or simply letting your thoughts wander while listening to the rain. These aren't lonely activities, they're deeply nourishing ones. And you don't need a companion to enjoy them. You just need permission from yourself to say, this is enough. I am enough. Sometimes people confuse solitude with sadness. But solitude, when chosen intentionally, is one of the richest experiences we can have. It allows your mind to slow down, your heart to soften, and your spirit to expand. After years of running around, doing for others, meeting expectations, it's like finally taking a deep, full breath. And that breath? That moment of stillness? It's a gift. And here's something else to keep in mind. There's no one-size-fits-all version of happiness after 70. If friendships come naturally to you and you love the company of others, that's wonderful. But if you find yourself enjoying the quiet more than the crowd, that's just as valid. You don't have to fit into anyone else's definition of social or fulfilled. You get to decide what feels right for you, without apology. Now that we've talked about peace and self-connection, let's explore another powerful reason why letting go of the need for constant friendship can actually make this chapter of life more joyful. Because now, more than ever, your time is fully yours. And that brings us to something most people don't realize until later in life. The older you get, the more precious your time becomes, and you start to guard it like the treasure it truly is. When you were younger, maybe you said yes to things out of politeness. Lunches you didn't want to go to. Phone calls that dragged on. Visits that left you drained instead of fulfilled. But after 70, something shifts. You begin to recognize how valuable each moment is, and suddenly, spending it on things, or people, that don't lift you up doesn't feel right anymore. You're no longer living for other people's approval. You've earned the right to say no without guilt. And that kind of honesty, that kind of self-respect, is one of the greatest freedoms that comes with age. Choosing how to spend your day, on your own terms, without the pressure of social obligations, isn't selfish. It's wise. You've put in the years. You've cared for families, worked hard, supported others. Now it's time to let your hours be filled with what you truly enjoy, even if that means doing it all alone. And here's where things get really interesting. When you stop chasing social circles, you often end up feeling less lonely, not more. It may sound backwards, but think about it. How many times have you felt lonely in a room full of people? Or sitting across from someone who wasn't really listening? True connection isn't about how many people are around you. It's about how deeply you feel known, accepted, and at peace, especially by yourself. When you're comfortable in your own company, you stop looking to others to fill emotional gaps. You're not waiting for someone to invite you out, or checking your phone hoping someone remembers to call. Instead, you wake up and create your own joy, your own rituals, your own sense of meaning. Whether it's reading a new book every week, working in your garden, cooking your favorite meals, or walking through a quiet park, these are things that come from within, not from who's around you. You become the source of your own happiness. And that's incredibly powerful. Now, let's talk about something many people don't acknowledge, but it's worth saying out loud. Maintaining friendships takes energy. Emotional energy. Mental energy. Sometimes even physical energy. And depending on where you are in your health journey, you might not have that to spare. That's not a weakness. That's your body asking you to prioritize. You might not have the bandwidth to deal with gossip, or someone else's crisis, or constant small talk. And you shouldn't have to. After 70, your energy becomes something you spend wisely. Like a currency. And spending it on yourself, on your rest, your hobbies, your healing, is not just allowed, it's necessary. You're not being antisocial. You're being intentional. And for those who worry, but what if I need help someday? That's a very real thought. But needing support and needing friendships are not the same thing. You can build a support system that works for you, neighbors, caretakers, family, community programs, without needing to maintain constant social ties just to feel safe. In fact, many seniors find they feel more secure when they build a routine that puts their needs first, rather than relying on the unpredictable rhythms of friendships that may come and go. You deserve to feel in control of your time, your space, and your relationships. That means surrounding yourself only with what truly serves you, and letting go of what doesn't. And here's another quiet truth: sometimes, it's only when we're alone that we really hear ourselves. We spend so much of life being shaped by others' opinions, advice, and noise that we lose touch with our own voice. But in solitude, that voice returns. Maybe it's the part of you that says, "I've always wanted to learn how to play the piano." Or, "I feel most alive when I'm near water." Or even something simple, like, "I just want a slow, peaceful morning without anyone talking to me." That voice is your compass. It guides you toward joy that's truly your own, not borrowed from someone else. When you stop filling your calendar with social events out of habit, you start filling your life with intention. That's the kind of joy that lasts. It's not dependent on who texts back or who shows up. It's rooted in something deeper, your own contentment. And contentment, especially in this chapter of life, is more valuable than popularity. It's more fulfilling than trying to fit in. It's about knowing who you are, what you need, and giving yourself permission to live that way every single day. Now, that doesn't mean you shut people out. If someone truly brings light into your life, of course you keep them close. But the key difference is that you're not seeking friends out of fear of being alone, fear of what others think, fear of missing out. You're choosing relationships from a place of peace, not pressure. You're living on your own terms now. And that's something worth celebrating. Let's keep going, because there's another beautiful reason that embracing solo joy after 7-0 can be one of the best decisions you ever make. And it's this: you now have the space to rediscover who you are without all the noise. Think about it. For so many years, your identity was probably tied to roles: parent, spouse, worker, caregiver, friend. You wore all those hats, often at the same time. But after 70, many of those roles either shift or fall away, and for the first time in a long while, you get to ask a powerful question: who am I when no one's expecting anything from me? This stage of life is like a blank canvas. You're not limited by the expectations that once shaped your schedule, your relationships, even your personality. You don't have to keep playing the role of the dependable one or the social butterfly just because people got used to you being that way. You can be quiet. You can be bold. You can be soft, adventurous, slow, spiritual, silly, whatever calls to you. And when you're not spending your time maintaining friendships that don't reflect who you are anymore, you free up space to explore what does. Maybe you realize you love classical music and want to go to concerts alone. Maybe you start writing poetry in the mornings, or spend afternoons watching nature documentaries just because they fascinate you. These little moments of joy don't need an audience. They're for you. And often, they feel even more meaningful when they're experienced without distraction or explanation. When you stop trying to keep up with a certain social life, you start feeling more connected to yourself. And that self-connection is what really brings fulfillment at this stage, not how many people you call in a week. Also, let's not ignore something a lot of people in their 70s quietly deal with: the fatigue that comes from emotional caretaking. It's not just about physical energy, it's about always being the listener, the helper, the peacekeeper in friendships. If you've ever had relationships where you were constantly the one offering support, staying silent to keep the peace, or giving more than you got back, then you know how draining that can be. And at this point in life, you've earned the right to say, "I don't want to carry that anymore." You don't need to fix anyone. You don't need to keep old friendships alive just because they've been around for years. If a connection feels one-sided, heavy, or emotionally exhausting, it's okay to let it go, with grace. You're not abandoning anyone. You're choosing peace. And peace isn't selfish, it's sacred. By letting go of emotional weight that doesn't belong to you, you give yourself permission to rest, to recharge, to protect your emotional space. And that space is where true joy grows. Something else beautiful happens when you start embracing this solo chapter: you become more present. Without the constant noise of social obligations or relationship drama, your senses wake up. You notice the way the sunlight hits the floor in the late afternoon. You hear the birds more clearly. You smell the morning coffee with fresh appreciation. You're not rushing through your days to fit someone else's schedule, you're soaking them in. This kind of mindfulness brings a deep contentment. It's not the loud, high-energy kind of happiness that comes from big parties or exciting news. It's the soft, steady kind, the kind that says, I'm okay. I have everything I need, right here. And that is a powerful feeling. So let me say it again, because you might need to hear it twice. You do not need a busy social life to be happy. You do not need to hold on to friendships that no longer nourish you. You do not need to explain your choices to anyone. Your joy, your peace, your contentment, they are your own, and they are enough. Of course, if someone does come into your life who makes you laugh, makes you feel seen, and fits naturally into your world, that's beautiful. Let them in. But let them in without pressure. Without the idea that you need them to feel whole. Because you already are whole. And when we stop needing people to complete us, the relationships we do allow and become lighter, healthier, and more joyful. So now, as we wrap up this conversation, I want to leave you with this: aging isn't about losing things, it's about gaining clarity. And one of the clearest truths you'll ever learn is this: the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. When you nurture that relationship, when you treat yourself with the same care, kindness, and patience you've given to others for decades, everything changes. Life slows down in the best way. You stop searching. You start being. And in that space, solo joy isn't something you settle for, it's something you celebrate. You are allowed to choose quiet. You are allowed to choose peace. You are allowed to walk this path your way, without guilt, without apology, and without needing to explain why solitude makes you feel alive. If any of this resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What have you discovered about yourself since turning 70? What brings you the most joy these days? Let's create a space here where choosing yourself isn't just accepted, it's honored. And if you found comfort in this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. We share more content like this, gentle, thoughtful reminders that you're not just getting older, you're getting wiser, braver, and more you than ever before. Here's to living your truth. Here's to protecting your peace. And most of all, here's to living your best life at any age.